Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are traveling deep into the forests of south-central Calabria to uncover a story that has been buried for over 2,000 years. It is a story of a ghost that has haunted history books, a legend that many locals whispered about, but no one could prove. Until now. We are talking about the Dossone della Melia forest. For centuries, hikers and locals walked past strange, moss-covered stones in these woods. They saw a linear mound running through the trees, unnatural and long, but for the longest time, people just assumed it was an old property line, or perhaps a natural oddity. But beneath that moss and earth lay the physical evidence of one of the most desperate and violent standoffs in human history. This is the story of the Spartacus Trap. In a stunning convergence of modern technology and ancient legend, archaeologists have finally unearthed the very fortifications built by the Roman general Marcus Licinius Crassus. This structure was designed for one purpose only: to cage the most famous rebel in history, Spartacus, during the terrifying final days of the Third Servile War. Let us start with the discovery itself, because it is a perfect example of how 21st century science can validate ancient history. This did not begin with a university expedition or a treasure hunter map. It began with a tip from a local group of environmentalists. These locals knew the woods of the Dossone della Melia plateau better than anyone. They had observed this long stone barrier winding through the wilderness, and they suspected it was something significant. They reached out to Dr. Paolo Visin, an archaeologist at the University of Kentucky. Visin was intrigued. He assembled a team that was not just looking to dig, but to scan. He brought in experts from the Italian Ministry of Culture and specialists in geophysics. They deployed the full weight of modern technology to strip away the forest canopy digitally. They used ground-penetrating radar, known as GPR, LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging, and magnetometry. These tools allowed them to see what was beneath the layers of soil and vegetation, without immediately destroying the context. What appeared on their screens was unmistakable. This was not a farmer's wall, it was a military machine. The structure they found ran for approximately 2.7 kilometers, or nearly 1.7 miles. But it wasn't just a wall. It was accompanied by a deep ditch, called a fossa, and a mound system known as an agger. Now, for those who study Roman history, this specific combination of a fossa and an agger is the fingerprint of Roman military engineering. It is the exact same system Julius Caesar used to starve out the Gauls at the famous siege of Alesia. But this wall was not in Gaul. It was in the toe of Italy. And the location matched exactly where historical sources claimed Marcus Licinius Crassus had trapped Spartacus. However, in archaeology, a wall proves only construction. It does not prove a battle. To confirm that this was indeed the site of the legendary standoff, the team needed a smoking gun. They needed evidence of a fight. And buried in the soil along that wall, they found it. The team recovered numerous rusted remnants of a desperate clash. They found sword handles typical of the late Roman Republic and javelin points used by Roman legionaries. But the most chilling find, the one that truly connects this site to Spartacus, were the large, curved blades. These blades strongly resemble the sicca. The sicca is a curved dagger or short sword that was the signature weapon of Thracian gladiators. Finding Roman weapons is one thing, but finding a Thracian gladiator's blade alongside Roman military hardware is the archaeological equivalent of a smoking gun. It suggests strongly that Thracian fighters, Spartacus' own people, had thrown themselves against this wall in a bid for freedom. To truly understand the weight of this discovery, we have to look at the history. Why was this wall here? By the year 71 BCE, the Third Servile War had been raging for 2 years. Spartacus was a gladiator who had escaped a training school in Capua with just 70 others. But that small group had grown into an army of over 70,000 escaped slaves, shepherds, and outcasts. They had achieved the impossible. They had defeated every Roman army sent against them. They had humiliated the Senate and struck fear into the heart of the Republic. Rome was terrified. In their desperation, they turned to Marcus Licinius Crassus. Crassus was the wealthiest man in Rome, but he was desperate for military glory to match his rival, Pompey the Great. Crassus was a ruthless commander. When he took command of the legions to hunt Spartacus, he decimated his own troops. This means he executed 1 in every 10 men of a cowardly unit. He did this to ensure that his soldiers feared him more than they feared the enemy. Spartacus had marched his people south to the very tip of Italy. His plan was to sail to Sicily. He had paid Cilician pirates to ferry his army across the Strait of Messina, hoping to ignite a new slave revolt on the island. It was a bold plan, but it failed. The pirates took the gold and sailed away, leaving Spartacus and his 70,000 followers stranded. This is where Crassus made his move. Spartacus was trapped in the toe of Italy, with the sea at his back and Crassus' legions closing in. Crassus saw an opportunity to end the war without a risky open battle. he decided to imprison the rebel army. He ordered his legions to construct a massive fortification across the isthmus of the peninsula. The Greek historian Plutarch actually described this feat. He wrote that Crassus set to work to build a wall across the isthmus, keeping his soldiers from idleness and his foes from forage. Plutarch notes that this great and difficult work was perfected in a time short beyond all expectation, including a ditch 15 feet in width and depth. The wall discovered in the Dossone della Melia forest is almost certainly a section of this great work described by Plutarch. The location is strategic perfection. The plateau serves as a natural bottleneck between the Tyrrhenian and Ionian seas. By fortifying this pass, Crassus effectively put a cork in the bottle of Italy. This wall was not just a pile of stones. It was a psychological weapon. It told the rebel army that they were no longer an army, but prisoners. Behind that wall, supplies began to run out. Winter set in. The rebels began to starve. The archaeological site tells us the story of the end. The wall has no gates. It was not built to let people through, it was built to keep them in. But the presence of those broken weapons indicates a breach. According to historical accounts, Spartacus did not go quietly. Realizing his army would die of hunger, he waited for a snowy winter night. A storm howled across the peninsula, blinding the Roman sentries and muffling the sound of movement. Under the cover of that blizzard, the rebels frantically worked to fill the ditch. Plutarch tells us they used earth and timber and the boughs of trees. But there are darker legends that suggest they used the bodies of their dead and the carcasses of their cattle to create a bridge of flesh and wood over the Roman fossa. The rebels poured over the filled ditch, crashing into the wall. The broken curved blades found by Dr. Vicinet's team likely date to this chaotic freezing night. We can imagine the scene: the screaming of men in the wind, the clash of Roman iron against gladiator steel, and the desperate push of thousands of people trying to escape the trap. And Spartacus succeeded. He broke through the line with a portion of his army, forcing Crassus to abandon his siege and chase them down. However, the breakthrough at the wall was a tactical victory but a strategic defeat. It forced the rebels into the open, where Crassus and the approaching armies of Pompey could hunt them down. The final battle took place shortly after. Spartacus is said to have died, fighting his way toward Crassus himself, seeking to kill the general or die trying. His body was never found. The aftermath was brutal. The 6,000 survivors of the rebellion were crucified along the Appian Way, a grim warning from Crassus to any other slave who dared to dream of freedom. So why does this discovery matter today? For 2 millennia, the Wall of Crassus was just a line in a history book. Now, it is a place you can stand. The discovery in Calabria grounds the legend of Spartacus in reality. It validates the ancient texts of Plutarch and Appian, proving that the scale of Roman engineering was as massive as claimed. But more importantly, it gives a voice to the voiceless. That broken Sicca blade found in the dirt speaks of the individual fighter who held it. It represents a man who stood in the freezing snow, facing the might of the greatest empire on earth, and swung his sword against a wall of stone. This discovery is not just about a Roman general's trap. It is a monument to the desperation and defiance of the human spirit. The wall failed to hold Spartacus, just as history has failed to forget him. Thank you for listening to this episode of G Fun Facts Online.